you ready to Snapplique? This video is part of a series for the Happy Halloween quilt by Amy Bradley Designs. Snapplique is an automated method to take a paper quilt pattern, scan it into the ScanNCut, and convert it into a machine embroidery design. You can even use the ScanNCut to cut out all your pieces. You'll be able to create blocks like this for your quilt with an embroidery machine and no longer have to go around each individual piece with a domestic sewing machine. This method is a lot of fun and it's a real time saver, and I hope you join me. Let's get to it. I wanted to take you through the process of how I prep my fabrics. I created this key right here, and this is listed by monster and all of the other fabrics that you need, and it corresponds. I got these numbers of which fabrics are in which monster from the fabric key that came from Two Chicks Quilting. And I will go through, for instance, today I'm going to use this to put together Mr. Monster block. I took all of the fabrics listed for Mr. Monster and I just wrote them on a sticky, and I put what it was so that I can know where things go on the mat based on what the fabric is. And then I just wrote the size of the piece I would need, which I got from looking at the size of the graphic on Brother Canvas. For instance, this is fabric 27. I'll pull the fabric sticker off, and then I've pulled all the fabrics. I pulled all the fabrics out from the bucket where I've got them in numerical order. And then I'll take that sticker and put it up in the selvage and then staple it to the corner so it doesn't grow legs and walk away. And I can see here that I need a 3 by 1.5. There's a piece I've already cut out. That's ready to get some heat and bond light on the back of it. And I'll continue to do this for all the rest of these pieces. Okay, now I'm ready to go put heat and bond on the back. The way I do my heat and bond is a little unconventional, but it works really well. I lay my heat and bond out adhesive side up, and I lay my pieces on it. Let's see. I just kind of play Tetris with these, and I lay my pieces on it so that there is a couple of threads hanging over the edge of the heat and bond on a couple sides. And I just kind of figure out how they're going to lay here. They might require a press ahead of time. They usually do. Oh, and the white fabric is going to go on some SF101. This is SF101. This is a interfacing type of material. It's adhesive on one side, and I keep my scraps for just this purpose. And again, my threads, there are just a couple of threads. This is the adhesive side, iron on, and I've got just a few threads of the top piece over it so I don't get sticky all over my ironing surface on my iron. And then I'll turn it over and iron it really good. That's got SF101 on it now. It makes it more opaque so you can't see dark fabrics through the white. And when I put on another piece, I'm going to overlap it just a little bit. This is a selvage I don't want to catch. Let me cut that off. I overlap the pieces of fabric by a couple of threads and again over the edge to make sure I'm not going to get anything sticky. Now that I've got this like I want it, I'll take the iron and just tack them down to the heat and bond, paying attention not to get heat and bond on my iron. And then I have a little cutting mat and I slip this underneath, and then I keep a rotary cutter next to the iron and I cut right next to or a thread into the fabric. And I'll keep the bigger pieces like this for scraps. And now I'll flip it over and give it a very good ironing, holding the iron for 5 to 8 seconds on each pass. Because there's fabric hanging over the edges of the heat and bond, I'm not getting any heat and bond on my iron. Once the back's done, flip it over and make sure that it's done on the front as well. If you don't have a good adhesion with your heat and bond will stick to your mat. These are ready for the ScanNCut now. I'll just keep them all on one piece and that way they don't get lost. I'm going to trim up the block using the trimmer by George, and the trimmer by George has a metal edge right here on one side of it, and you just fold back the pretty fabric, leaving the stabilizer and the batting, and then fold it over so the pretty fabric is protected. You want to use a 60mm rotary cutter, and you can trim that off nice and neat right up next to the stitching. And then I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance instead of a 1/4 inch because it's easier to press these seams open using a wider seam allowance. You can use whatever you want. That's the final block, and that's how pretty of an edge you get when you use the trimmer by George. I've got a link to it below.